I never thought I'd be the person writing one of these posts. I've been a lurker on Reddit for years, reading other people's drama and thinking, wow, that's insane, glad that's not me. Well, guess what? Now it is me. And honestly, I still can't believe this is my life now. My name is Emma, and I'm 28 years old. Or at least, I'm supposed to be Emma. Sometimes I'm not even sure anymore. This whole situation has made me question everything I thought I knew about my family, my childhood, and my own identity. I'm writing this from a hotel room 3 states away from where I grew up, and I haven't spoken to most of my family in 6 months. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. I grew up in a suburb outside of Portland, Oregon. Pretty standard middle-class upbringing. My dad worked in software, my mom was a part-time real estate agent, and I had one older sister, Claire. Claire was 3 years older than me, and growing up, she was basically perfect. I mean that literally everyone loved her. She was beautiful, got straight A's, was captain of the volleyball team, had tons of friends, the works. Meanwhile, I was the awkward younger sister who lived in her shadow. Don't get me wrong, Claire was never mean to me. That's what made everything so much harder to process later. She was actually really nice. She'd help me with my homework, let me hang out with her and her friends sometimes, gave me advice about boys. I loved her. I looked up to her more than anyone else in the world. Our parents adored her too. And I get it, she was the golden child. Every report card, every achievement, every milestone was celebrated like she'd won the Nobel Prize. When I brought home good grades, I'd get a good job, honey, and maybe dinner at my favorite restaurant if I was lucky. When Claire brought home good grades, it was like a national holiday in our house. I tried not to be bitter about it. I really did. I told myself that Claire earned the attention, that she was just exceptional, and that I needed to work harder to be more like her. That's what I spent my entire childhood and teenage years doing, trying to be more like Claire. When Claire went off to UCLA for college, I was 14. I remember crying in my room the night before she left, not because I'd miss her, though I would, but because I was terrified. Claire had been like a buffer between me and my parents' expectations. With her gone, I'd be the only focus of their attention, and I knew I could never measure up. But something weird happened after Claire left. My parents seemed relieved? Less stressed? I couldn't quite put my finger on it at the time, but there was a shift in the house. They were more relaxed with me, more affectionate. For the first time in my life, I felt like maybe I was enough. Claire would come home for holidays and summers, and things would go back to normal, everyone orbiting around her like she was the sun. But I had those periods when she was gone, and I started to build my own identity. I got into photography, made my own friends, even got a boyfriend junior year. I wasn't Claire, but I was becoming okay with being Emma. Then came the first incident. I was 16, maybe 6 months after Claire had gone back to UCLA after Christmas break. I was applying for this prestigious summer photography workshop in Seattle, and I needed to submit my portfolio along with my application. I'd been working on it for months. Carefully selecting my best pieces, writing statements about each one. The day before the deadline, I went to print everything out, and I couldn't find my portfolio file. I tore apart my computer looking for it. I checked every folder, every backup drive. Nothing. I was in full panic mode. Then, on a whim, I checked my email trash folder, and there it was, a confirmation email that my photography portfolio had been submitted to the workshop. But I hadn't submitted it yet. I called the workshop's admin office, and they confirmed that yes, they'd received a submission under my name, 2 days earlier. They wouldn't tell me what was in it due to privacy rules. I was confused but also relieved, at least my application was in, right? Wrong. 3 weeks later, I got a rejection letter. Not even a thanks for applying, a letter that said my submission had violated their guidelines because it contained plagiarized work. I was devastated. I called them back, sobbing, trying to explain that I didn't know what they were talking about, that I hadn't even been the one to submit the portfolio. They were sympathetic but firm. Someone using my name and email had submitted a portfolio containing photographs taken from various online sources. They'd done a reverse image search on everything, and none of it was original work. My name was now flagged in their system. I told my parents, and they believed me, but they thought maybe I'd been hacked. We changed all my passwords, ran virus scans, the whole 9 yards. I was upset, but I tried to move on. I chalked it up to some weird internet thing and tried to forget about it. But it kept happening. Little things, here and there. My Facebook account would post things I didn't write, nothing terrible, just weird, slightly off-brand stuff that made me seem flaky or irresponsible. Comments on my friends' posts that I didn't make, that were just rude enough to cause awkwardness. I kept changing my passwords, but it kept happening. Junior year, I applied to colleges. I had my heart set on NYU. They have an amazing photography program. I worked my ass off on my application, got my SAT scores up, wrote what I thought was a killer personal essay about finding my own path separate from my sister's shadow. I got a rejection letter. Not a waitlist, a flat rejection. I was crushed, but I got into my second choice, Boston University, so I tried to focus on that. But something nagged at me about the NYU rejection. It felt wrong somehow. This is where I need to give you some context about my sister Claire. After she graduated from UCLA, she'd moved to New York and gotten a job at a prestigious marketing firm. She was living her best life, making great money, living in a trendy Brooklyn apartment. On paper, she had it all. And she never let anyone forget it. Her Instagram was a constant stream of number-blessed posts about her amazing life. I moved to Boston for bulletin, and I have to say, those were some of the best years of my life. I was away from home, away from Claire's shadow, and I was finally just Emma. I thrived there. I made real friends who knew me as me, not as Claire's little sister. I got serious about my photography and even started getting some of my work shown in local galleries. I was happy. Then, during my sophomore year, I got a call from my mom. She was crying, which was unusual because my mom isn't really a crier. She told me that Claire had been in the hospital. That she'd had some kind of breakdown. My parents were flying out to New York to be with her. I felt terrible. Whatever weird, complicated feelings I had about Claire, she was still my sister, and I hated that she was going through something. I offered to fly out too, but my mom said no, that Claire specifically didn't want me to see her like this. That hurt, but I understood. We weren't as close as we'd been when I was younger. The geographic distance had created an emotional distance too. Claire recovered, or at least that's what we were told. She took a leave of absence from work for a few months, but then she was back at it. My parents didn't really give me details about what had happened, just that she'd been under a lot of stress and had been dealing with anxiety and depression. They made me promise not to bring it up to her directly, to let her talk about it if she wanted to. Life went on. I graduated from bulletin with honors, which felt amazing. My parents came to my graduation, and even Claire flew in for it, which surprised me. She seemed different. Quieter, maybe? Less of that golden child shine. But she was still Claire, beautiful, put together, successful. After graduation, I moved to Seattle. I'd fallen in love with the Pacific Northwest during that photography workshop fiasco. I'd eventually gotten into a different one, and I wanted to be somewhere that felt like home but wasn't actually home, if that makes sense. I got a job at a photography studio, mostly doing weddings and portraits, and I got a tiny apartment in Capitol Hill. For the next few years, everything was fine. Better than fine, actually. I was building my career, I had a good relationship with a guy named Marcus, and I was in therapy working through some of my childhood living in Claire's shadow issues. I saw my parents maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and I'd see Claire at holidays. Things were cordial but distant. Then, about 18 months ago, everything started to unravel. It started with a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was a woman named Jessica, and she said she was calling from NYU's admissions office. She asked if I was Emma Richardson, and when I confirmed, she said something that made my blood run cold. We're conducting an audit of our admissions processes from several years ago, and we've found some irregularities with your application from 2013. Would you be able to come in and discuss this with us? I told her I'd been rejected from NYU and hadn't attended. There was a long pause on her end. Then she said, according to our records, you were accepted with a partial scholarship, and you declined the acceptance. I'm not kidding when I say I almost dropped my phone. I told her that was impossible, that I'd received a rejection letter. She asked me to hold, and I could hear her typing. Then she came back and said, Ms. Richardson, I think you need to come in and see us. There's something very wrong here, and I think you might be a victim of identity theft. My hands were shaking. I told her I lived in Seattle now, but I could fly out. We set up a meeting for the following week, and I immediately called Marcus and told him everything. He insisted on coming with me, which I was grateful for because I felt like I was losing my mind. That week until the meeting was torture. I kept thinking about all the weird stuff that had happened over the years. The hacked accounts, the stolen portfolio, the strange posts. I'd always blamed it on internet weirdness, but now I was starting to wonder if it was something more deliberate. The meeting at NYU was even worse than I'd imagined. They showed me my application, or rather, the application that had been submitted under my name. The personal essay was completely different from the one I'd written. This one was rambling and incoherent, talking about how I didn't really want to go to college, how I was only applying because of family pressure, how I had substance abuse issues. I'd never had substance abuse issues. I barely drank in high school. But here's the thing that made me feel like I was in a nightmare: the essay also mentioned details about my life that only someone close to me would know. Specific memories from childhood, inside jokes, things that weren't public knowledge. The admissions officer showed me more. The application had been withdrawn via email 2 weeks after the acceptance letter had been sent to an email address that was one letter different from my actual email. Like, mine was imagerichardson@gmail, and this one was maryshardson@gmail. Easy to miss if you weren't looking carefully. They tracked the IP address of where the withdrawal email had been sent from. Brooklyn, New York. I felt sick. Marcus had to help me to the bathroom because I thought I was going to throw up. This wasn't random identity theft. This was someone who knew me, who had access to information about my life, who was in New York. But I still didn't want to believe it. I couldn't let myself believe it. Because if I was right about who I was starting to suspect, it meant everything about my life, my childhood, my family was a lie. I flew back to Seattle, and I became obsessed. I started digging into everything I could find online about myself. I requested records from schools, applications I'd submitted, accounts I'd created. And the more I dug, the more irregularities I found. A scholarship I'd applied for senior year of high school that I'd supposedly withdrawn from I hadn't withdrawn. An internship application at a prestigious gallery in college that had been rejected because I'd apparently sent a follow-up email insulting the curator. I'd never sent that email. A roommate matching survey for freshman year of college that had made me sound like a nightmare to live with. I didn't remember filling it out that way. Every single incident traced back to small changes in my email address or accounts that had been created in my name with slightly different information. And every single incident had made my life just a little bit harder, had closed doors for me, had kept me from opportunities. I hired a private investigator. I know that sounds dramatic, but I needed to know for sure. I gave him everything I'd found and asked him to dig deeper. It took him 6 weeks, and what he found destroyed me. For the past 15 years, my sister Claire had been systematically sabotaging my life. The PI traced IP addresses, recovered deleted emails, found digital footprints that all led back to her. She'd created fake email accounts in my name. She'd hacked into my actual accounts dozens of times. She'd submitted false applications, sent damaging messages, sabotaged opportunities. All of it carefully calculated to be just subtle enough that I'd think it was bad luck or internet problems. But consistent enough that it had genuinely damaged my life trajectory. But it was even worse than that. Claire hadn't just been sabotaging me, she'd been stealing from me too. Remember that photography portfolio that got me rejected from the workshop when I was 16? The PI found it. Claire had taken my photographs, the actual originals from my computer, and had been using them in her marketing work. She'd won awards for campaigns that featured my photography, claiming the creative vision was hers. That personal essay I'd written for my NYU application, the one about stepping out of my sister's shadow? Claire had published a version of it on Medium 3 years later under her own name, talking about the pressure of being the older sister and how she'd had to find her own identity separate from family expectations. It had gone viral. It had gotten her a book deal. She'd been stealing my words, my art, my identity, and using it to build her perfect life while simultaneously destroying mine. I confronted her. I flew to New York without telling anyone, showed up at her apartment, and laid out everything I'd found. I expected her to deny it, to gaslight me, to tell me I was crazy. Instead, she broke down crying and admitted to everything. She said it had started small, just changing a few answers on my photography workshop application when we were teenagers because she was jealous that I'd found something I was passionate about when she was feeling lost at college. She said she'd had a moment of spite and had acted on it, and then she couldn't take it back. But it hadn't stopped there. It had become compulsive. Whenever something good happened to me, whenever I succeeded at something, she felt like it threatened her position as the golden child. So she'd sabotage it. She'd tell herself she was just evening the playing field, that I'd had it easier because I was the younger one, because less was expected of me. The breakdown she'd had during my sophomore year of college? That was when she'd first started seeing a therapist who'd confronted her about her obsessive behavior regarding me. She'd apparently spent years in therapy trying to work through it, but she'd never stopped. She couldn't stop. And the stealing my work? She said that started because she'd been struggling with her own creativity, feeling like a fraud in her job, and my work was just sitting there so she'd used it. Then people had praised her for it, and it had felt so good to be recognized, to be valued, that she'd kept doing it. She apologized. She cried and said she knew she'd ruined my life, that she was sick, that she needed help. She begged me not to tell our parents, said it would kill them to know what she'd done. And here's the thing that still messes me up, part of me felt sorry for her. Part of me wanted to just hug her and tell her it was okay and we could work through it. But I didn't. Because it wasn't okay. She'd stolen 15 years from me. She'd sabotaged my education, my career, my relationships. She'd used my art and my words to build her success while ensuring I'd struggle. And she'd done it all while playing the role of the perfect, loving older sister. I told her I needed time to think about what to do. I left her apartment and went back to my hotel, and I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept thinking about telling my parents, about going public, about pressing charges. But I also kept thinking about how this would destroy my family, how my parents would never look at either of us the same way again. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls from my parents and a bunch of texts from extended family members telling me I should be ashamed of myself. I had no idea what was going on until I checked Instagram. Claire had posted a long, heartfelt message about her struggle with a mentally ill sister who has been accusing her of increasingly outlandish things. She said I'd shown up at her apartment making paranoid, delusional accusations and that she was heartbroken to see me in such a state. She said she'd been trying to get me help for years but that I'd always refused, and now I was spiraling out of control. She asked for privacy for our family during this difficult time. She'd flipped the script. She'd made me the crazy one. I tried calling my parents, but they didn't answer. I tried texting them the evidence I'd found, the PI's report, everything. They responded once, "We think you need professional help. Claire showed us the messages you've been sending her. This has gone too far." I found out later that Claire had fabricated months' worth of threatening messages from me, complete with fake screenshots showing me sending increasingly unhinged emails and texts. She'd built a whole narrative about me being jealous of her success, about me having had a breakdown and fixating on her as the cause of all my problems. And my parents believed her. Of course they did. She'd been the perfect daughter for 31 years. I'd been the one living across the country, the one who'd been distant, the one who'd always lived in her shadow. When forced to choose between Claire's word and mine, it wasn't even a contest. I tried reaching out to other family members' aunts, uncles, cousins. Claire had gotten to them first. She'd shown them her fabricated evidence, told them her version of events, painted herself as the concerned sister trying to help her disturbed younger sibling. A few people reached out to me with concerned messages about getting psychiatric help. Everyone else just cut contact. The only people who believed me were Marcus and a handful of my friends in Seattle who knew me well enough to know I wasn't delusional. But even some of my friends were skeptical. Claire's evidence was convincing, and I sounded paranoid trying to explain that my sister had been sabotaging me for over a decade. I tried to fight back. I posted my own statement on social media with evidence from the PI report. Claire's followers, she had over 100K on Instagram by this point, descended on me, calling me a liar, accusing me of trying to destroy my successful sister out of jealousy. Someone dug up old photos of me from college drinking at parties and started spreading them as proof of my substance abuse issues. Claire's fabricated narrative had taken on a life of its own. My boss at the photography studio called me in for a meeting. She'd seen the social media posts. She said she didn't want to take sides in a family matter, but several clients had called expressing concern about having someone unstable photograph their weddings. She suggested I take some time off. Indefinitely. I lost my job. The stress destroyed my relationship with Marcus. He believed me, but he couldn't handle the constant drama and the impact it was having on his own life. I started having panic attacks. I couldn't sleep. I lost weight. I looked exactly like the mentally ill person Claire had painted me to be, which only made everything worse. My therapist was the one who finally got through to me. She said I needed to step back, that I was trying to fight a battle I couldn't win, not because I was wrong, but because Claire had too much of a head start. She said the best thing I could do for myself was to build a life separate from all of this, to focus on my own healing, and to accept that some people would never believe me. So that's what I've been trying to do. I moved out of Seattle 6 months ago. I'm in a different city now. I'm not going to say where because I don't trust that Claire isn't monitoring my online presence. I'm working as a freelance photographer under a slightly different name. I've had to basically start my life over from scratch at 28 years old. I haven't spoken to my parents in 6 months. They sent me one email saying that they'd always love me, but they couldn't have a relationship with me while I was continuing to spread harmful lies about Claire. They said when I was ready to apologize and get help, they'd be there for me. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to admit to something I didn't do just to have my family back. But God, I miss them. I miss my mom. I miss feeling like I have a family. Claire is thriving, by the way. Her book came out 3 months ago, a memoir about overcoming family trauma and finding yourself. It's getting great reviews. She's been on podcasts, done a small book tour, the whole thing. She's never mentioned me by name in the book, but anyone who knows our family would recognize the troubled younger sister character who serves as the antagonist to her hero's journey. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just kept my mouth shut. If I'd never confronted her, I'd still have my family, even if it was based on a lie. I'd still have my job, my relationship, my normal life. Was the truth worth losing everything? I don't have an answer to that yet. Most days I think yes, I couldn't live with knowing what she'd done and pretending everything was fine. But some days, usually late at night when I'm alone in my new apartment in a city where I don't know anyone, I'm not so sure. The PI told me I have enough evidence to press charges for identity theft, fraud, and copyright infringement. The statute of limitations hasn't run out on most of it. But pursuing legal action would mean more public exposure, more fighting, more of my life consumed by this nightmare. And there's no guarantee I'd win. Claire has money for good lawyers now, thanks in part to my stolen work. So for now, I'm just trying to move forward. I'm in therapy twice a week. I'm slowly rebuilding my photography portfolio, actual new work that she can't steal because I'm copywriting everything and keeping it secure. I'm making new friends who only know me as Emma, not as Claire's sister or that crazy woman from the internet drama. Some days are okay. I can go hours without thinking about it, without feeling that sick rage in my stomach. Other days I spiral, stalking Claire's social media, seeing her continue to live this perfect life built partially on my stolen work, seeing my parents comment on her posts with pride, knowing I've lost them forever. The hardest part is that I genuinely loved her. Before I found out the truth, Claire was one of my favorite people in the world. I looked up to her. I wanted to be like her. And now I know that the person I loved never really existed, or if she did, she was also someone capable of systematically destroying my life for over a decade. I keep thinking about all those moments growing up when she'd help me with homework or give me advice about boys. Was any of it real? Or was she just playing a role, being the good sister in front of our parents while secretly undermining me at every turn? I'll never know, and that might be the worst part. A few weeks ago, I got a message from someone I didn't know. She said she was Claire's college roommate and that she'd seen the drama unfold online. She said she believed me, and she wanted me to know that Claire had done similar things to her, stolen her ideas for projects, sabotaged her relationships, spread rumors about her. She said she'd never been able to prove it at the time, but looking back with the context of what I'd shared, it all made sense. She wasn't the only one. Over the past few months, I've had 4 different people reach out to me with similar stories about Claire. Women she'd worked with, competed with, felt threatened by. She'd stolen from them, sabotaged them, gaslit them. It was a pattern that went back years, and I was just the most recent and most extensive victim. Part of me felt validated by these messages. I wasn't crazy. This wasn't just a family dispute. Claire was genuinely a person who hurt people to get ahead. But another part of me felt even worse, because it meant she was even sicker than I'd realized. The breakdown she'd had during my college years? Maybe it hadn't been about stress at work. Maybe it had been about the weight of all the harm she'd been causing, all the lies she'd been maintaining. I don't know if I'll ever fully heal from this. How do you process finding out that your entire childhood was a lie? That the person you looked up to most was actively working to destroy you? That your parents either can't or won't see the truth, even when it's laid out in front of them? My therapist says I'm grieving, and that makes sense. I'm grieving the sister I thought I had, the family I thought was mine, the life I could have lived if someone hadn't been sabotaging me at every turn. I'm grieving the version of myself who was naive enough to believe that my struggles were just bad luck, that success was just harder for some people. I'm also grieving the future I won't have with my family. I'll never have my parents at my wedding, if I ever get married. They won't meet their grandchildren, if I have them. I won't have family Christmases or Thanksgivings. I won't have a sister to call when I need advice or just want to talk. All of that is gone, and it's not coming back. But here's what I'm trying to focus on: I'm free now. For the first time in my life, I'm living without someone actively sabotaging me. Every success I have from this point forward will be genuinely mine. Every door that opens will be one I opened myself, not one Claire decided to let me have. That's worth something, right? It has to be. I've started getting my work shown in galleries again under my new name. I had a piece purchased by a collector last month for more money than I've ever made from my photography. I'm building something real, something that's entirely mine, and no one can take that from me. And maybe someday, when enough time has passed, the truth will come out. Maybe one of those other women Claire hurt will come forward with evidence. Maybe Claire will slip up, or maybe the weight of all her lies will become too much to carry. Maybe my parents will eventually see through her facade. Or maybe none of that will happen. Maybe Claire will go on being successful and beloved, and I'll go on being the crazy estranged sister. Maybe that's just how this story ends. Either way, I'm done letting her control my narrative. This is my life now, and I'm the only one who gets to decide what happens next. If you've read this far, thank you. I know it's a lot. I guess I just needed to get it all out, to tell my version of events to someone other than my therapist and the handful of people who still believe me. I needed to say, officially and publicly, this happened to me. I'm not crazy. My sister stole my identity, my work, and my family, and I'm still here anyway. That's all I've got. I don't know what comes next. I'm just taking it one day at a time, trying to build a life I can be proud of, trying to become the version of Emma that Claire never let me be. And if Claire is reading this, which, knowing her, she probably is, I want you to know that I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, and not because what you did was okay. I forgive you because I need to let go of the anger that's been eating me alive. I forgive you because I refuse to let you take up any more space in my head or my heart. But I also want you to know this: I'm not the scared little sister who lived in your shadow anymore. I'm not the person you could manipulate and control. I found out the truth, and even though it cost me everything, I'd do it again. Because living an authentic life, even a harder one, is better than living a comfortable lie. I hope you get help. Real help. I hope you deal with whatever is broken inside you that made you think destroying me was necessary for your success. And I hope that someday, you'll understand what you took from me, from us, from our family. But mostly, I hope I can stop thinking about you at all. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar: identity theft by a family member, gaslighting, having your truth dismissed, I see you. I believe you. You're not crazy, even when everyone around you says you are. Trust your gut. Document everything. And know that even if you lose people you love in the pursuit of truth, you haven't lost yourself. That's what matters most in the end.